Crime Network. This is Jesse Weber. Thanks for joining us today. We are continuing our coverage of our two major trials today. We're covering the Xavier Dobson case as well as the Todd Kendhammer case. Now, before I get into either of those cases, I do have to let you know about an update in the Cloud9 shooting in case anybody had missed that. In that case, which the verdicts were handed down yesterday, those three men who were on trial for second-degree murder of the death of 19-year-old Benitria Robinson, Michael Eugene Smith and Laquan Barrow were found guilty on all counts, and they were sentenced to life in prison plus additional years for the attempted second-degree murder charges. Remember, this was a shooting. Multiple people were injured. However, Gary King, who you see in the middle, was found not guilty. Now, as I said, I wasn't surprised. I think a lot of us weren't surprised. Mr. King had his own separate jury. The evidence didn't seem to be as strong against him. So he was found not guilty, but the other two were found guilty. And you heard some really compelling victim impact statements from both the victims in this case, as well as, if you want to consider the family members of the defendants, they might be victims in a way too, that they've lost their children to the system, that they are now going to be incarcerated for seemingly the rest of their life. And you heard these statements provided by both of the family members, and it was really heart-wrenching to hear on both sides. But that is the conclusion of that case. By the way, Mr. Barrow will be sentenced in a few weeks as well, and hopefully we'll be able to cover that. Okay, so now we want to talk a little bit about the Todd Kendhammer case, which again we expect at around 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Prosecutors contend that Todd Kendhammer fatally beat his wife of 25 years and tried to conceal her death by staging a freak car accident. I'm not making this up, folks. This is exactly what it is. Kendhammer says that she died when an airborne pipe pierced his windshield and struck her in the head. Now, prosecutors contend that her injuries are not consistent with that. And you saw the medical examiner take the stand yesterday, and we'll talk all about that. So the state believes that there's a lot more sinister motives than Todd Kendhammer is initially stating. The other case that we're covering as well is the Xavier Dobson case. This is a really sad one. This is the case of a 15-year-old star high school football player out of Tennessee who was shot and killed when he shielded his friends from gunfire. That's right. These shots were alleged to have been fired by Christopher Drone Bassett, Richard Gregory Williams, and Kipling Colbert Jr. Now, these three men, you see them right there, they're on trial for the death of Xavier Dobson, and it really is a sad story for anybody who's been following this. Former U.S. President Barack Obama had actually paid tribute to this young man and talked about his heroism. You see it right there, Xavier Dobson died saving three friends from getting shot. He was a hero at 15. What's our excuse for not acting? Also, this young man received the Arthur Ashe Courage Award in 2016. Really just a remarkable young man whose life was cut too short. We saw testimony yesterday about the actual event in question, about the shooting, the young people that were there that day. And also you heard about this rap video. Now, this rap video shows these three men in a rap video, and the prosecution wanted to put it forward to show that they have gang affiliations, that they have a propensity for violence. Obviously, there was a big legal issue there about whether that video can actually get in. And another sad part about this case is that Xavier's mother was in the courtroom, and she was hysterically crying, particularly when his clothes were brought into evidence. And she was so hysterical that the defense attorneys actually asked the judge to declare a mistrial, but the judge refused to do that. A lot of topics to discuss today, and we'll be here to talk all about it. Again, we expect Xavier Dobson maybe at around 15 minutes, and then Todd Kendhammer shortly after that. So to help me talk about everything that we're talking about today, I'm here today joined by criminal defense attorney Adam Sostrin. Adam, great to have you actually in the studio.
So good to be here. I'm usually doing this from Los Angeles, so fantastic to be in the Big Apple.
Well, thank you for being here. So let's just talk about Kendhammer, really. Okay. I want that to be our main focus right now.
Sure.
So, not a case that you see a lot, where looks like an accident. And let me tell you something, Adam. I heard his audio tape. You know, he had spoken to a police officer on the drive after the accident. I saw the dash cam footage. This guy legitimately seemed that this was an accident. That he seemed like, I'm not sure I understand what the prosecution has here. What do you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, they didn't arrest him on the spot. He came back a couple days later. They didn't know what happened. Obviously, his anguish seemed pretty heartfelt. That's pretty clear. Was it an accident? That's the issue. And there's sort of so much evidence that shows perhaps it wasn't an accident, but is the defense able to prove reasonable doubt in this case? Absolutely fascinating. I've never actually seen a case where somebody manufactured, potentially, that's at least what the prosecutor is saying, some sort of pipe going through a windshield and saying, well, this is what happened. So there's all sorts of evidence perhaps, and some of it disputes that count.
We'll talk about the medical examiner in a minute, but we had Julie Rendelman on yesterday, and she was like, if you want to kill your wife, why would you do it like this? You know, that's what doesn't make sense. Why would you, I mean, if this, according to him, the pipe went through the windshield, he carried her out of the car, tried to perform CPR, called 911. It seems like an elaborate way to get rid of somebody and stage it as an accident.
It does seem extremely elaborate, but I've had so many cases where I'm talking to my clients and they say, well, why would I do that? That's just sort of that's just part of the nature of doing criminal law. So who knows? But there's testimony at least that's coming into play that appears that perhaps it wasn't just an accident, and they have some footage regarding vehicles in the area, and it's not exactly clear that there was in fact some flatbed truck where a pipe went down and then crashed into the windshield. The defendant later changes his story. He said that it did in fact crash on the ground before arriving in their vehicle. So there are definitely questions.
Right, he couldn't identify the driver, didn't know really what color the car was, said it was dark green or gray, blue, in
the 2000s.
A little vague, a little too vague for his own good, but then again, let's just back up. Let's take our skepticism away for a second. If you're driving and an accident occurs, maybe you won't actually recall that car to your best of your knowledge.
It's terribly difficult. In fact, I myself have witnessed a crime, and it's hard to remember exact details of a suspect. Let's say it's hard to remember exact details of a vehicle if you're involved in a regular tort type case. So it's understandable. Let's say if there is a death involved. Gosh, let's say this is the person that you love. This is the love of your life, and they die, and maybe you can't remember every single detail. And that's sort of, in a way, that's sort of what the defense hopes the jurors think.
Dr. Kathleen McCubbin, she was the medical examiner in this case, really probably one of the star witnesses for the prosecution. Don't really see that usually, where now we're trying to determine the cause of death. Really, it's not about who did this or what happened, but really trying to understand how this woman died. Now, I would say the most critical element of her testimony for the state, she says that she didn't find any injuries that she believes matches a pipe coming through the windshield. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. Nor did they see any blood on the pipe, and this is the pipe that's allegedly causing the blunt force trauma that kills the victim in this case. So it's very interesting. So this sort of meshes with the prosecutor's case that the person was killed, an accident was manufactured. You supposedly have a bystander that sort of goes by the area, and he doesn't recall seeing any windshield that appeared to have been damaged. And of course, after the car rolls off a little bit of an embankment, that's supposed to be after the accident occurs.
All right, and under cross-examination, she basically said that she was confirming that she was never told that all of the injuries had come from a pipe, and she admitted that there were injuries that she couldn't determine how they actually were caused. So isn't it possible that a pipe could have come through the windshield? I mean, imagine this. It comes through the windshield. He's trying to help her get out of the car. There's obviously injuries that could be from him trying to get her out of the car. I mean, there's perhaps splash from glass. She says, however, said if the glass were to shatter, really wouldn't cause the injuries that she saw. However, she said she's not an expert in glass.
She's not an expert in glass.
So what do you think?
Well, I would say it's obviously very hard to find an expert medical examiner who is an expert in glass.
Yeah, it's probably a niche category. I don't know who would actually want to study that. But
doing both. It must be a dual major kind of thing.
Yeah, something to do. Well, I actually do want to play you this testimony that we're talking about. You see it on the right-hand corner. I want to actually play it for you. Probably the star witness in this case, Dr. Kathleen McCubbin. This is her testimony from yesterday. And when we come back, we'll be back here with Adam to talk a little bit more about these cases for today.
Directing your attention back to September of 2016. On September 20th, did you perform an autopsy on the body of a woman identified as Barbara Kendhammer?
Yes, I did.
Were there photographs taken at the autopsy?
Yes, there were.
And did you detail a report of your findings?
Yes, I did.
In addition to performing the autopsy, did you review anything else related to Barbara Kendhammer's death?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
I reviewed a brief, it was a couple-page report on the specifics of the accident provided to me. I reviewed some medical records. I reviewed some photographs of the car at the scene. And ultimately, before I released my report, I did review the entirety of her medical records, photographs of the scene, photographs of Mr. Kendhammer, and photographs of the pipe.
And when you say you reviewed medical records, what medical records did you review specifically?
I reviewed the medical records that were generated at Gunderson Lutheran Medical Center.
Related to this accident or this incident?
Correct, related to the admission after the incident.
Showing you what's been marked as Exhibit 6B. Do you recognize this?
I believe so. Yes, I do.
Counsel, did you want me to receive all these documents at this point, or as you introduced them, or what was your intent?
We've agreed they may be received during.
All right, just for the record, because I haven't done it yet, 59 through 74 will all be received, then we'll go from there. So carry on.
I gave you that copy of the autopsy report because you'll be referencing it during the rest of your testimony, I presume.
Yes.
When you completed the autopsy, did you have an opinion as to the cause of Barbara Kendhammer's death?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
The cause of Barbara Kendhammer's death was blunt impact injuries of her head and neck.
We're going to go over some charts now. Remember, we had the easel set up here. Do you not
You
want?
can put that where you want. I just
Okay.
wanted it moved for the witnesses
Okay.
walking around.
For the record, this is Exhibit 7.
Can all the jurors see that? Okay.
Can you tell us what?
May I stand over here?
Yeah, you can stand where you would like.
Can you tell us what this chart depicts? And feel free to reference your report if you need to.
Sure. This is a body diagram, and basically all of the marks that I've put on that body diagram indicate injuries that I've documented on the body.
Starting in the torso area, can you tell us what injuries you documented?
Would it be okay if I approach and
We need
point?
to have you
Or do you prefer?
use the microphone, so if the pointer will work, that would be good.
Okay, thank you.
And if you need that angle just a little more toward yourself, you can have her reposition.
Yes, please, if you could angle it just slightly.
The jury.
And can the jury still see that?
Judge, I'm having difficulty seeing the witness at this point.
You want to bring it closer toward me, perhaps, and then you can watch the witness. Maybe just
That's good for me.
does that work for you?
We'll make it work.
If you want it move a little more,
We're okay.
okay, all right. Go ahead.
So can you describe the injuries you observed in Barbara Kendhammer's torso area?
Sure. So on this diagram, first off, you can see there's a little mark across the left side of the neck there. And there I observed a 3 by 1/2 inch area of contusion. A contusion is a bruise or a blunt impact injury. Then you see these sort of marks that I've made across the front of the top part of the chest over the clavicles. So that is a 10 by 3 inch area of red, purple, bruising, and bleeding into the skin. Overlying the area of the left upper chest, there was a 1 1/4 by 1/2 inch area of abrasion that was sort of U-shaped. And an abrasion is another type of blunt impact injury. It's a scrape on the skin. As far as the torso goes, on the back of the top of the midline back, there was an area of bleeding in the fatty tissues beneath the skin that measured 1 3/4 inch by 1 1/2 inch. Then on the right lower back, or the top of the buttock region, there was another bruise or contusion that measured 1 1/2 by 3/4 inches. And then on the left lower back, there was a 3/4 inch purple bruise or contusion. There was also a pink contusion of the right groin that measured 1 1/2 inches. So those are, I believe, all the injuries of the torso on this diagram. There are other injuries of the extremities, though.
Sure, let's talk about them. What injuries did you observe on the arms?
So on the arms, on the right upper arm, on the inner surface, there was a 3-inch area which was a cluster of multiple red, purple contusions or bruises. On the inside of the left arm, there was a 4 by 2 1/2 inch area of patchy bruising that was red and purple. On the back side of the right upper arm, there was a 1/4 inch purple bruise. On the kind of inner part of the right elbow, there was a 1/2 inch very faint purple bruise. And then on the left forearm, on the side in line with the pinky finger, or the ulnar side, there was a 3-inch faint pink bruise. Now moving to the lower extremities, on the right lateral thigh, there was a 1 1/2 inch contusion or bruise. On the front portion of the mid part of the thigh, there was a 1/2 inch bruise. Then slightly below that, there was a 1 1/2 inch area of patchy red, purple bruising or contusion. And slightly below that, there was another area, 2 1/4 inch of red, purple bruising or contusion. Further down on the right shin, there was a 2 1/2 by 1 inch area of tannish colored contusion that had an overlying scrape or abrasion that measured 1/4 inch. Now on the front part of the left leg, there was a 7/8 inch contusion or bruise kind of on the lateral aspect to the side. And then further down towards the ankle, there was a 3 1/4 inch area of red-pink contusion. On the back side of the legs, on the left calf, there was a 5-inch area of red-purple contusion. And then on the right calf, there were 2 bruises. One was 1 1/2 inches, and one was 1 1/4 inches.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network, everybody. This is Jesse Weber. We're showing some testimony from yesterday in the Todd Kendhammer case out of Wisconsin. We expect live coverage maybe in 10, 15 minutes. As soon as we do have it, we'll make sure to go to it. Or we have another case that we're covering today as well, the Xavier Dobson case. It's a really sad case out of Tennessee of a 15-year-old who was trying to protect his friends from gunfire when he was fatally shot. Really, really sad story. I'm here with criminal defense attorney Adam Sostrin.
Good to be here.
Adam, good to be with you. I want to just talk quickly about this Dobson case.
Let's do it.
One of the sad parts was that his mother had actually broke into hysterics during the courtroom. The defense tried to request a mistrial because they felt that it was going to be prejudicial to the jurors. That didn't result. The judge denied that. What did you think about that?
Well, of course not. That's not going to happen. But it's so common in cases like these that you're going to have some family member of a victim, or someone who's severely injured in a case, where they may get up and cry. They may scream out in a case. It happens all the time. The judge sort of admonishes the person in the audience, stop doing that. And then, speaks to the jurors and says, okay, this, you can't, look at this, whichever way. It's just something that happens in a case, and it's not going to be grounds for a mistrial ever. I've never heard of this being grounds for a mistrial. But the defense sort of has to do what it has to do. I mean, if it doesn't have much of a case or whatever, they have to make arguments. These arguments aren't just for the trial court. They're for the court of appeal.
Right.
So how egregious, were these screams? And what, in fact, was this person saying or this crying? They sort of just put it out there, but this is one of those that isn't going to work.
I mean, Judge Sword encouraged jurors to judge the case on the facts, but added,
Right.
we can all understand a mother's pain. Is that sufficient?
No, that works, but whenever I hear something like that as a defense attorney, I sort of cringe a little bit. We can
Yeah.
understand the pain of this person having gone through something as a result of what the defendants did. At least that's sort of what I'm feeling. But, judges make statements like that all the time on the bench.
Right. Adam, let's show our viewers that incident where his mother broke out into tears when the clothing
Okay.
was showed. So let's show that to our viewers right now.
Can you see a bullet defect?
There's one right here, near the right chest area.
Maybe you look right.
Really, really sad to watch. You can only imagine what that mother was going through. And again, we were talking about whether or not that was grounds for a mistrial, which is the defense tried to do. They tried to request a mistrial due to Xavier Dobson's mother's outcry. Will that affect the jury? The judge denied that. I'm here with Adam Sostrin. Adam, another interesting part about this Xavier Dobson case is this rap video. Okay,
Right.
so there's apparently a rap video that these three defendants were in.
Sure.
They pledge allegiance to the Blood Street Gang. They, talking about violence. There was a whole issue before this even came about whether or not it should be brought into evidence. The prosecution wanted it in to show their relation to gang activity because they
Right.
believe this shooting was related to gang activity.
Sure.
The defense didn't want this in because it's prejudicial, but also
course.
because they said it would chill creative speech. They said it would chill the speech of thousands of other musicians and artists. The judge wasn't buying that. What do you
No.
make of that argument?
I could almost imagine making that argument, but I understand what the prosecutor was trying to do. We have gang cases in California. You want to prove a gang enhancement. You want to show that it's gang related, and it also helps to show some sort of motive in the case. So if that's what it takes for the prosecutor to prove a gang enhancement, I can't imagine a judge sort of denying this. This is footage that just came out several days before. The defense, of course, can make, let's say, cute arguments regarding free expression and freedom of speech. We all have these things, but these are sort of statements or in a way admissions that would come in a court of law because they're relevant to the gang enhancement part of the case. So I can't imagine a judge not allowing something like that.
The defense was said, look, the prosecution's going to try and get this in because they want to show their gang members, but these guys are just rappers. Do you think that's grounds, again, for something that they could pick upon in appeal? That is, by the way, if they are convicted.
Right. Well, if they're making statements regarding, being, in a specific gang related to the Bloods, I think that was part of the statement that they made several days before. I don't think that any appellate attorney is going to have an easy time convincing some appellate court that, wait, there was some major mistake here. It's pretty hard to get anything on appeal. No, it's not happening.
This case is, it's really captured
Right.
the nation's attention.
Sure.
Really, it's such a sad kind of case where a 15-year-old gave his life to protect other people. And
Right.
I'm in a way, I'm glad that there was attention brought to this, but doesn't this speaks a larger conversation about violence in this country and perhaps gang activity?
Sure. It's so terrible. Gangs sort of snuff out the lives of so many people that could be, successful in life later on. Obviously, this kid's a hero. so sad. I think what you were saying before, Barack Obama weighed in about this person, and it's such a tragedy, such a young man. And what do? Gangs they're awful. They're a scourge, and obviously there's something we have to do about gangs. They will continue to go on, as long as you can sell illicit drugs and things like that. And these are nationwide problems.
Really sad story.
Yeah.
I want to play the testimony of Officer Jimmy Wilson in this case, who actually talks about the crime scene when he came upon it. And when we come back, hopefully we'll have live coverage in either Dobson or the Todd Kendhammer case out of Wisconsin, which we will talk about when we get back, because that's another bizarre case. Again, about a man who said that his wife died in a tragic car accident, that a pipe fell through the windshield that from a flatbed truck that was in front of him. However, the state feels that it was murder, that it was a lot more sinister than that. We'll talk about that in a minute, but here is some testimony in the Xavier Dobson case.
Now, do you recall what type of cruiser or police vehicle you were driving?
I was in a Chevy Tahoe.
Is that kind of a different sort of cruiser?
Yes, sir, that's a K-9 vehicle.
A K-9 vehicle. You had a K-9 officer with you at that time?
Yes, sir, at that time.
Is that a cruiser equipped with video recording equipment?
Yes, sir, it is.
And did it have audio recording equipment?
It is equipped with audio recording.
And have you had a chance to review your cruiser video?
Yes, sir.
And was the audio working on this particular occasion?
No, sir, it wasn't. It shows that it was on, but no sound was coming through.
In any event, did it capture some certain images that were within the range of the camera?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to show a portion of that shows some of the activity around that scene. And if I need to pause it for you to explain anything, just let me know and we'll pause it. Now, from that starting point, can you tell us what you're able to recall from viewing that portion of that video about what was going on?
Right here, Knoxville Fire Department's inside. There's some family showing up. The victim of this shooting's family is showing up. I believe it was her mother that showed up here at some point within this time frame here.
Okay.
Along with her son, actually shows up here, should be here in just a few minutes. He'll end up showing up here and walking past my car.
And as we get to the point on here where some of that happens, if you'll let me know, we'll pause it and let you explain it further.
Okay. And there he is there. That's the victim's son.
Okay.
He got out of the black BMW just out of camera there.
And I'll ask you about that in a minute, but for purposes of a time, can you tell us what time that is that he passes in front of your camera?
1939. That'd be 7:39 p.m.
Where does he go?
He goes towards the residence there inside the fence.
And what about there? Was there?
That's I don't know if she was a family member or a friend that showed up. I didn't get an identity on her.
Okay. And what about right there?
That's another male that showed up wearing a dark hoodie and like dark jeans. I did not get an ID on him. He was, I want to say, a friend of the victim's son or a family friend there.
You mentioned the victim's son. How were you able to determine that person you told us about was the victim's son?
I talked to him inside the house.
Okay.
And then a few other officers talked to him there. And he can be heard on, I think it's, or the grandmother can be heard on Officer Schroeder's video, as a matter of fact, saying his name as he's getting in the car earlier.
Okay.
And then there's another male that I just touched the screen. I'm sorry, I didn't go out and do that.
You can actually go off this. Let's start off with these tools right here. Let's see, clear, not there.
Yes. And then there's another male. He's wearing like a Adidas pants with stripes down the side, a white shirt underneath, a black hoodie type sweatshirt.
And I know it's kind of dark, but can you point out to us the stripe on the pants that you told us about?
Yes, sir. I'm not good at this thing, but at the tip of that.
Okay. All right. Maybe that's a better view there. Is that you there?
Yes, sir, that is me.
What is it you're doing at that point?
I was talking to somebody, and I didn't tell you who it was. That's one. I believe this is the point where the ambulance shows up. It took a little while for an ambulance to get there. I believe I was walking back to the intersection to tell them to kind of hurry up.
Okay. Right there, what was it again?
That's the male that I identified earlier with the Adidas top pants on, with the white t-shirt and the black hoodie or pullover top shirt there.
You know what direction he is going?
He is going south right there on Dallas Street.
Toward, you mentioned the car earlier, is it going toward that car?
Yeah, it's going towards that BMW there, yes, sir. That right there is, and I'll just kind of touch it there, just and right this thing. That gentleman there is the victim's son. He's actually wearing a different type of shirt. When he walked in the first time, he was wearing like a jacket or some type of pullover type winter clothing.
And he actually went in the house, did you say?
Yes, sir, he did. And then he goes back and gets in the car, and that BMW was actually sitting there with his parking lights on as well. That he gets out of and goes back into.
And have you had occasion to review Officer Traylor's video that shows that vehicle?
Yes, sir, I have.
And can you tell us whether or not this is the same person that exited that vehicle and re-entered that vehicle several minutes later?
Yes, sir, it is.
Welcome back to the Law and Crime Network, everybody. This is Jesse Weber. Again, that was some testimony in the Xavier Dobson case, one of the cases that we are covering today. The other case that we're covering is the Todd Kendhammer case out of Wisconsin. There you go, he's right there. This case where prosecutors contend that this man fatally beat his wife of 25 years and tried to conceal her death by staging a freak car accident. Kendhammer says she died when an airborne pipe pierced his windshield and struck her in the head. But prosecutors believe that the motives are a lot more sinister and he actually beat her to death. We know that the cause of death was blunt force trauma, but what really happened? I'm here today with criminal defense attorney Adam Sostrin. Adam, great to have you here again.
Great to be here.
Let's talk a little bit more about this case, as we do expect live coverage any moment now. What about the idea about where they were going that day? This was early in the morning.
Right.
We know that the guy that Kendhammer said he was going to his place to get his truck to replace a windshield, he had testified that he had never spoken to Kendhammer.
Right.
He didn't know he was coming.
Right. It was a terrible sort of idea for an alibi that the conversation they had regarding repairing a windshield had taken months before, and then somehow, somewhere on some planet, he's with his wife at that time, driving to this location for the windshield fix. It's just, it's terrible. Clearly, if he wanted to manufacture this, why come up with something that was so transparent? That didn't work, that alibi. At least it's probably not going to work with the jurors. The conversation taking place months before.
But then again, I was talking with some of our colleagues here. I think Aaron Keller used to live in Wisconsin. Isn't it just a way that maybe people show up to each other's houses, and that's what it's different. Right. I'm from New York, you're from California. Right. I mean, I won't go knock on an apartment's door, my neighbor's door in their apartment, but maybe people just show up to their other neighbor's house. Is it so outside the realm of possibility?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming if we made dinner plans or something like that, and I said, come over, and you decided to come over in 90 days, that would be harder.
Right. Good point. Okay. Good point. Yeah. Now, what about the idea here? Okay, Kendhammer, unless he's a really good actor, he was hyperventilating when this accident took place. I heard him in the videos. He's terrified about what happened. Is this guy an amazing actor, or what's going on here? From what we've seen, and we'll play a little bit of the dash cam video, where he looks, he can't believe what just happened.
Well, I think that's the idea. everybody on scene sort of thought that this is a grieving husband. The issue is, was he, the crying, the passion at the scene, is that something that can help the defense create reasonable doubt? Perhaps some people are better than others with respect to, trying to fabricate some of these emotions, but who knows?
Adam, I'm going to have to interrupt because we actually do have a live feed right now in the Todd Kendhammer case out of Wisconsin, so
Okay.
let's go to it.